Hi, I'm the dreaded Geek. Welcome back. This is going to be the first game preview on this channel. The game that we're looking at is on Kickstarter right now and hasn't yet been released. What we're looking at is a prototype. Materials may change. And what we're looking at is a copy of the game that I've been given in order to do this preview. Now, in this particular case, the game that I've been given is a game that I have volunteered to do a preview for because I've already played the prototype and love the game. So, spoiler alert, it's a positive review, and also there is no chance that I'm going to give a dishonest review. I asked for this one because I like it so much. The game we're going to talk about is a game called Egypt by Laboratory Games. Some of you may remember that I've spoken about Laboratory Games in the past. They were the people who sponsored my trip to PAX this year, and that's where I got to play the preview of this game. I have great faith in pretty much everything they put out, and this game is no exception, although it's very different to everything else they've done. Thematically, this is a tomb-robbing game. You're in an ancient Egyptian tomb trying to get out with the treasure before your rival tomb robbers, before your rival explorers. The theme is light, but it does make the game more enjoyable. It adds a certain fun, nonsense element to the game as you're playing it. So, let's talk about the mechanics. The board is made up of 4 pieces. Those 4 pieces each have 4 squares. Those 4 squares all have the same 4 actions on, although not necessarily in the same order between different board pieces. Those pieces are arranged in a line, forming the overall board. The objective of the game is to get from the starting end to the finishing end after having put your 3 keys, these Unk tokens of random color that'll be distributed in your backpack before the game, onto their correct key spaces on the board. You have to place the two starting Unks before you can place your final Unk, and then once you've placed your final Unk, you have to make it off the end of the board. If you move off the end of the board before that, you simply come back at the beginning and continue through the board. Depending on where you land during the game, you will take one of 4 actions. You have to take the action for the square you land on, there is no choice. But the choice from the game comes in that if you roll a d4 and roll a 2, 3, or 4, you can move up to that number of spaces. So you have a certain amount of tactical choice over which space you land on, depending on your roll. Obviously a roll of 1 removes all choice from you for that turn, but that's the luck of the die. If you land on this space, this board segment turns upside down, which disables the other 3 spaces. The only thing that can happen on this board space is to land there again, which turns it back on. This is called turning off the lights. If you land on this space, the Unk, if you have that key available in your backpack, you toss it back in the box, counts as placing your Unk, and continue through the board. That is, of course, the objective of the game. If you land on this space, you may exchange the board segment that you've landed on with another board segment, advancing yourself and potentially bringing one of your rivals back to the beginning of the board. And finally, if you land on this space, you rotate the board segment, like so, leaving it in place. Whenever board segments move, flip, or switch, all players on the board remain on the same spaces they were on. So, in an example, if I roll, let's start the game like this, and I roll a 2, I decide to only take a 1 because that actually advances me further along the board track, and my opponent rolls a 1, only gets 1 space of movement, but then they can swap board segments like that, bringing themselves much closer to the end of the board. Of course, in the process, they've promoted me even further than they promoted themselves. This is a typical take-that game. Promoting your opponents is always a bad thing. But in a game with multiple opponents, promoting one of them that is further behind you may be worth it to get an edge over the others. The take that element of the game is so quick and so quick to switch who's ahead, who's behind, that it doesn't feel aggressive, it doesn't feel too hostile, and a lot of fun can be had playing this game. Because the rules are so simple, it can be played by pretty much anybody who can understand them, and there's no text anywhere in the game. Once you understand the rules, it's all symbols on the playing pieces. I've played this game in groups of adults, I've played it with mixed groups between adults and children, and there really is no distinct advantage to anybody at all when playing. It's a great family game. These pieces are supplied as win counters when playing multiple rounds of the game. Once you make it through the dungeon, through the tomb, you collect one of those pieces of treasure and hold it in front of you as a scorekeeping mechanism. And that's it. It's a very simple game with a very simple rule set. It's enjoyable to play, takes seconds to learn, and sometimes a game can take as little as 10 minutes, but games can be stretched out by some bad luck on the part of the players, because it is a luck of the die game in the end. For a luck of the die game, I enjoy it a lot more than I usually enjoy those, because of the tactical element of being able to choose how far you move when you roll. It isn't a snakes and ladders roll and move type game. Overall, I love this game. I think it's a great family game. It's a great small party game. It's not something you have to focus on in order to play, so it's a very social game. Follow the links in the doobly-doo down below to the Kickstarter page. I highly recommend you pledge for this one. I'm the Dreaded Geek. This has been a preview of Egypt by Laboratory Games. Thanks for watching.